The New York Knicks have announced that they have a very high asking price for Mitchell Robinson. Plus, we also may be seeing who is the successor for the great Clyde Frazier when it comes to announcing Knicks games as the analyst. We have our daily dose of Knicks news, and we're going to jump right into it. So what's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. My name is Chris, and we are going to talk about two different stories today. And the first one is that Mitchell Robinson has a very high asking price, and that is that the Knicks want multiple first-round picks in any trade involving Mitchell Robinson. The Knicks have basically just said that they value Mitchell Robinson way higher than basically every other franchise will, and this is also because they believe that Mitchell Robinson is in that second tier of centers, right below Jokic and Embiid and Adebayo, none of whom would probably ever get traded except for maybe Embiid because of the 76ers and their current state. And Mitchell Robinson, they believe, is right below him and would want multiple firsts for him, meaning they value him so high that it's basically impossible to imagine that the man gets traded. I mean, let's just take a look here. As Vincent Goodwill reported today, with the bloated nature of the current NBA trade market, the Knicks are reportedly looking for multiple first-round picks for their starting center in any potential deals, according to Yahoo Sports, which obviously we were just talking about. Again, this is because of the bloated nature of the trade market, especially when it comes to centers. Centers have recently been costing a lot of money. Just the other day, we saw DeAndre Ayton be the main piece that the Portland Trailblazers got back for the greatest player in their franchise's history in the three-team trade that sent Damian Lillard to the Milwaukee Bucks. Clearly, centers are valued very high, despite the fact that it's supposed to be a dying position. I believe it's an evolving position, and clearly that is the state of the NBA, because they are very, very high on centers, and by they, I mean all 30 NBA teams, because I think not too long ago, we would have been shocked to see a guy like Rudy Gobert get traded for 5 first-round picks, or DeAndre Ayton be the main piece in a Damian Lillard trade. But now that's what we've seen. We've seen that Bam Adebayo is untouchable. We've seen that obviously Jokic, who might be the best player in the NBA, is untouchable. We've seen that Joel Embiid, who also might be the best player in the NBA, because he did just win MVP, is damn near untouchable. And there's only one team in the NBA that it feels like would ever trade for Joel Embiid, and that is, of course, the New York Knicks. However, that is a story for another day. We've talked about that a lot, and we're definitely not done talking about it. But let's just talk about NBA centers in general, because Jonathan Macri, thanks to him, he put out something on Twitter, basically just sort of as a disclaimer for all Knicks fans wondering why the Knicks value Robinson so high. Essentially, to go more into what Goodwill had to say, they're talking about just the general market of centers and how the top echelon, the top 3 centers in the NBA, who I have named, Embiid, Jokic, Bam Adebayo, I think we can all agree on that, are basically untradeable. And then you go to that second echelon, that second tier, where you get Rudy Gobert, Jared Allen, who was a massive piece for that Brooklyn James Harden deal back in 2021 that obviously blew up in Brooklyn's face, which is hysterical. And then the asking price for a player like Mitchell Robinson, sources told Yahoo Sports, is multiple first-round picks. Probably a non-starter for most clubs. First of all, no, he's not. Probably a non-starter for most clubs. You mean the guy who just went out there and beat up on Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in the same series, who also balls out every time he plays against DeAndre Ayton, because Ayton was the first overall pick in a draft that Robinson was the 36th overall pick in, and Robinson wants everyone to know who the better center is? What do you mean he's not a starter? It's just a lie. It's a straight up lie. He has the most offensive rebounds in the league. He averaged 4.5 offensive rebounds per game. That is the most in the NBA. I don't see why anyone would lie and say that he's a non-starter on most teams. He's a non-starter on like 4 teams. Like, alright, he's not going to start over Jokic. He's not going to start over Embiid. He's not going to start over Bam Adebayo. He's not going to start in Minnesota because of Towns and Gobert, despite the fact that that is its own tragedy. But again, not really Knicks related, and we're not really going to go into it. But I mean, outside of that, where else would he not start? The Lakers, because Anthony Davis can't really shoot and they want a shooting center like Christian Wood to start? He'd start basically on every other NBA team. Every single team in the Eastern Conference, or at least in the New York Knicks division, Mitchell Robinson is the starting center on Brooklyn. You think they're going to start Claxton over him? I don't. You think the Boston Celtics are not going to slide Porzingis to power forward and will put Mitchell Robinson at center? Because I certainly think they would. The Toronto Raptors, you're going with Pirtle over Mitchell Robinson? Ben's probably going to get mad at me for saying that if he watches this. But it's true. Mitchell Robinson's better if you ask me. I mean, we just saw what Mitchell Robinson did in the playoffs. Sure, he got outplayed by Bam Adebayo, who I've already said is in a tier above Robinson, so who the hell cares anyway? That I know this sort of turned into a digression about that, but that's just a ridiculous quote, especially because we all know Robinson is a starter, and he's a starting level player on an NBA championship winning team. We know this. That is one of the reasons why his value is so high, because he is an elite rim protecting center who is the best offensive rebounder in the NBA, and it feels like he could explode into a much better player. It just feels like he hasn't fully tapped his potential. I actually sort of agree with the Knicks holding him to this standard, to this level of value, because I think it just makes sense. I wouldn't trade Mitchell Robinson under basically any scenario unless I'm getting like Joel Embiid. So I actually agree with the Knicks here, and with that, we are going to move on to the second part of this video, where we are talking about Mark Jackson, yes, the Mark Jackson, potentially replacing Clyde Frazier in the long run and a little bit in the short run. Here's the deal. Clyde Frazier is a 78-year-old legend. We all love the man. He's also a senior citizen. He's elderly. He's been around the block 9,000 million times. He is the only man to win the New York Knicks a championship as the starting point guard on the team. He's won 2 of them. And the most recent one was 50 years ago. The man's old, straight up. He's old. He's the best, but he's old. And he doesn't want to travel as much anymore. He doesn't want to do away games. And the Knicks might bring in Mark Jackson, because Jackson is a former New York Knick, and he was great with the Knicks for a while. He averaged the most assists per game as any rookie in the NBA ever did. And on top of that, he is friends with Mike Breen. They worked together on ESPN for many years, including doing the NBA Finals together every year up until this year, because Disney struck down and got rid of Jackson and Van Gundy, replacing them with Doc Rivers and Doris Burke. Obviously, the legend Mike Breen is still there, but definite downgrade, let's be honest. We all loved M. Jackson, JVG together. I would rather it be Jeff Van Gundy, I'll be honest. But Mark Jackson makes sense. Former Knick, New York guy, knows Mike Breen well. He's going to understand how to do this. He also, I believe, was the Nets play-by-play guy. I'm not sure if he was the play-by-play or the analyst, but he had a very big role calling games for the Brooklyn Nets, who were the New Jersey Nets at the time. And if we look here, and Andrew Marchand, I almost said a different name, former New York Knicks star Mark Jackson, stars heavy, could be moving forward with the team's television network as a part-time fill-in for the tenured analyst Clyde Frazier. It would be a return to the local Metropolitan TV for Jackson, who previously called games for the New Jersey Nets for the Yes Network shortly after his NBA career ended in 2004. I think it's an interesting signing that makes a bunch of sense, but outside of that, is there really that much to talk about Mark Jackson taking over for Clyde Frazier? I think the main thing is here, we all have to hope to God in the next 2 seasons that Clyde can call a Knicks playoffs game a little bit more. Maybe see the New York Knicks win the finals. Obviously, he would not be able to call that game because it's not locally televised, it's nationally televised. But we're seeing what is the end of the road for Clyde Frazier working in the NBA. I think he sort of signaled that by 80 years old, he is going to retire, which I think is very fair. He's given his life to the New York Knicks. He might be the most important person in the history of the franchise. I would probably say, at least for anyone who ever played for the franchise, that Clyde Frazier is the most important guy in New York Knicks franchise history. I hope they build a statue when he retires from broadcasting. Arguably a better broadcaster than NBA player, and he is probably one of the 50 greatest NBA players of all time, which just speaks volumes about how great he has been at his second career after his NBA career ended. So shout out to Clyde Frazier for always being the greatest announcer and being the only voice outside of Mike Breen who I would ever want to hear call the Knicks, but I think Mark Jackson is a pretty decent replacement, if you ask me. And that is all we have for today, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video. We're going to keep dropping content. The NBA season is right around the corner. I'm actually filming this on NBA Media Day, so we will have so much to talk about what goes on there. That has already happened. We've looked into it. We're going to get into NBA Media Day. We're going to get into everything. Bonus, Mitchell Robinson also said you win some, you lose some when it comes down to those trade rumors, but they're nothing, and it's all fine. And in a week from now, we get preseason basketball. And I cannot wait because that means we almost get regular season basketball. And the Knicks are really gearing up for a great season. I can feel it in my heart. I think they're going to improve off last year, guys. So make sure to like and subscribe to this video. Subscribe to the channel because, guys, we are going to make better content as the season goes out. This is just the warm-up. The game has not even begun yet. So let's go. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. So have a great day, guys. Remember, go Knicks. And I can't wait for some basketball.